What is up, everybody? It's Joe from JLW Games coming at you with another cool video. Back in Planet Coaster in Westwood. It's been way too long, and today I'm excited to say that we're getting into one of the exciting parts, and that is the Ghost Town section of the park. And I thought I would go ahead and get things started off with a bang, and we're going to get into the RMC. So I've been talking about the RMC in this area for quite some time, and this is going to be a really interesting and really fun RMC because it's going to be using a lot of terrain, and it's going to be pretty much a terrain ride. Now I wanted to make this ride a very unique RMC, so we're going to start from a high point here on the station, and it's going to have a nice, actually pretty decent drop to start off the ride, you know, not even into the lift hills. So and then I wanted to put like a little helix and then maybe like a little dip down and then go into the lift hill. Now this was a little bit of something different. You don't really see anything like this on an RMC, but I want to make sure this ride is very unique and but still, you know, resembles an RMC, kind of almost a first of its kind deal almost. It's not really, but it'd be really cool. I want to make sure it climbed this mountain on the lift hill to use very minimal, you know, coaster supports. That way the ride becomes actually a little bit more affordable for the park because there's less stuff they have to use to build it. So as you can see, the lift hill doesn't use a whole lot of supporting because it goes up up this cliff here, and it's actually going to be really neat. It's going to have a really great first drop, and I think it's going to be fantastic. Now, this first part, that's kind of like this little pre-drop that I get to, is kind of a little bit inspired by Wildfire, the RMC over there in Sweden. I really like what it does. It kind of does this little curve around and then it goes into its first drop. I made it slightly different because the little pre-drop before the actual first drop here, which we get into in just a moment, is actually just a little bit longer because I wanted to make sure the drop matched up quite nice going off the cliff here. So it has kind of this long little drop here, which is actually quite neat, and it's going to be a very exciting ride. And I think it's going to definitely most likely be the best ride in the park. It just depends if the B&M's any better, but I think this is going to take the best ride in the park, and I have no doubt about it. I think it's a great ride. It definitely tops off the mine train, and this is pretty much the first huge exciting ride coming to the park that I'm excited about. Now, as for the dark ride, some of you may ask about the dark ride. We're going to come back to it. I just wanted to get into the Ghost Town as kind of like the deadline that I wanted to do for this park is actually getting climbing very near. So I'm going to be doing a lot more episodes again lately. So I took a little bit of a break, a little bit over a week or so without any new episodes of this. So a lot of you were asking about it, but it's back. Don't worry about it. It's not like I've abandoned it. If I abandon a park, I will definitely let you know. Like, especially a big project like this. So what I kind of jumped ahead to the Ghost Town a little bit because I want to make sure I get a little bit more of the progress of the park done a little bit before you know, the deadline and stuff, because there's not really a deadline, but I want to get it done by March, but at the same time, you know, if it's not done till May, that's okay as well. Because then, you know, a lot of parks open in May and stuff like that, and not actually in March, but a lot of them do open in March as well. So what I wanted to do over here, it comes over this really big bank turn, and then it comes into a lot of little airtime hops coming across this part, and was very surprised that it had a decent amount of speed throughout this part, and so I decided to try and do this little barrel roll kind of element here because I wanted to make sure it had at least two inversions on this coaster, on this wooden. So this is a wooden RMC, by the way, of course, and I love how it uses the terrain a lot. The only downside is we have to get the track back up to the station, you know, so it can't be too long of a ride. It's actually a fairly short ride. It's not the shortest RMC in there, but it's actually going to be I think it's pretty decently sized, a decently sized RMC, because these rides typically aren't very long, because they usually have lots of high speed moments, and they they don't have a moment to where it's going pretty slow. So that's what we're going to make sure. So I want to make sure I did another dive off this cliff, maybe put in a couple more elements, and the ride would be over. So you'll see here what we kind of get into, and I love the barrel roll. I thought the barrel roll turned out great, and this is going to be a great terrain coaster. I've had this is like the coaster I first planned out at the beginning of the park at the same time. Now, as for a theme, I don't have much of a theme yet for this coaster, so I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are in the comments for a theme and name for this coaster, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. So right here we kind of do like a 0G stall, except it goes back the same way. I thought that would be kind of a lot of fun, and it's kind of a shorter stall. It's not like a very long stall, so there's hang time, but it's not a ridiculous amount of hang time. So this is, I'm very pleased and proud of this creation that I made. I think it resembles an RMC very well, at least in my opinion. A lot of you may disagree, but I'm very proud of this creation, and I think it resembles an RMC very well. As you can see, this element here, it kind of goes up in this helix and then comes down to a drop. And then I wanted to put like an ejector airtime hill, or just right here as we try to head back towards the station. And then I had to figure out what I wanted to do right before we get back to the station. So this was kind of a tricky one for me as well, because I didn't know what I was going to do. So I did kind of some twists and turns, and I decided to go under the lift hill here. An option was to go over the lift hill, but I thought under would be great, and kind of wanted to ride the wall of the cliff here. I thought that'd be kind of a cool element, and kind of like a neat little helix with a very heavy bank and then going up to the brake run. Now, I had a lot of issues trying to get this to the brake run properly, and it was kind of an interesting thing of how it works out. It actually gets pretty slow at this point when it reaches the top of this track here, the train itself. So I definitely knew the ride was going to be over at this point, so I had to make some tough decisions. You know, do I keep the helix, or do I try and make it go upwards and just try and get to the brake run while it still has some speed? Now, I decided to try and keep the helix as best as I can, and since the ride is going pretty much very slow, I figured that I could actually do a very tight turn here without, making it unrealistic, because it is going fairly slow here, and it's not going to be like a ridiculous amount of G-forces here. So I just made sure that it was banked enough and it heads into that brake run quite smoothly, actually. So I found the ride to be very, very smooth, and it worked out kind of actually in a nice way. You know, it's a very tight turn at the end there into the brake run, but it felt like it worked very well. And even though it kind of looks awkward, it actually flows through it very nicely, and I'm very proud of it. So this RMC is, I think it had a max speed of 69 miles per hour, which is a pretty good speed for an RMC, I think. And I think I had a drop height of around 120 some feet, I think. So it's pretty good. And the the angle of descent of the first drop is around, I would say, 83, 84 degrees. I made it pretty steep. I actually put it at 85, but after smoothing it, it probably made it change the degree by a degree or two or something like that. So that's all right. And here we're gonna be I'm working on the transfer track, and the transfer track actually turns out fairly nicely. I was actually very impressed with the transfer track that I made here for the RMC. I actually know kind of how some of these transfer track works on RMCs, so it worked pretty well. And a lot of RMCs, I think more than one actually, has a transfer track that actually goes up and down like an elevator rather than to the side. But this one's going to go to the side because there's no room underneath the track. So we're going to go ahead and do it that way. So this transfer track actually turns out very nicely, and I'm very impressed. Hopefully someday the game actually adds a transfer track into the game that's actually works, and I could have swore they've talked about it before, but I could be wrong in a way, but I'm not entirely sure. So anyways, we get into the transfer track over here, and the thing I'm doing right here is actually making the transfer table, that way the track can actually pull over and take the trains on and off the track. So it's fairly nice. It's fairly easy to actually create a transfer track that actually looks pretty decent, and I'm pretty proud of how they turn out. So I actually use one of the roof pieces to kind of look like a cable or lift or kind of thing that looks like it's what pulls the track over, and I think that actually works quite nicely, which is this right here. As you can see, I think those actually work quite nicely, and until I find a better piece, I think that actually works very well for the transfer table and stuff like that. So then of course I had to make like the little shed for the transfer track here, for where they store the trains and stuff, of course. And it's going to be a little shed, and you're not going to be seeing too much that goes into it, so it's actually quite nice. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, we're in the ghost town theme, so I wanted to make sure that the shed looks kind of, you know, ghost town like in a way, and it's almost looks similar to the mine theme in a way. You're going to see a lot of the these tin roofs and stuff like that, little rustic roofs and stuff like that. You're going to see a lot of that, and probably some regular roofs as well mixed in. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff to do left on this coaster, and then we had to start creating the ghost town area, which is actually going to be very fun, and I can't wait, because the ghost town is actually one of my most look forward to sections of the park. So after this, we have about another section or two, maybe a section. I think the Invention Company is also going to include the carnival as well. It's going to be kind of merged into the same section itself, because the carnival area is going to be like that family area that's going to have a lot of family rides and kind of some carnival-ish kind of rides and stuff like that. So the ghost town, the ghost town's not going to have too many rides in it. The main attraction, of course, is the RMC. It's going to be mainly focused on a lot of different spooky shops and restaurants, or some ghost town kind of things, a lot of buildings. So that's what I'm going to focus on in this section of the park. Is there's going to be a lot of buildings that are going to be kind of like a ghost town kind of feel. So it's going to be really cool. I'm very excited for this section of the park, and I can't wait to get more into it. So we do end up getting into the station here for the RMC, and this RMC, again, I can't stress enough how excited I am for this RMC. Like, it's actually something I've been wanting. I've actually been practicing with the terrain and stuff like that to make this RMC possible, and I've actually built in this save of the park without saving to try and get some practice on some RMC different styles and stuff off screen and stuff. That way, for when I get on screen, that I create a pretty amazing ride. Now, the statistics on this thing were green across the board. Nausea was green, excitement was green, and of course the fear was green as well. So it had a perfect mix of all three of those, and I think that's going to make it the hit coaster of the park. I think the guests are going to enjoy it, and I think it's going to get some pretty good lines on it. So we're going to make sure we make the queue line a pretty decent length, and it's going to be a pretty awesome ride. So when we come back in the next episode, I think we're going to work on the queue line a lot, and a lot of the detailing around the ride itself. And I'm gonna mess a little bit more with the terrain a little bit as well, and make some of the areas just a little bit more terrainy and stuff like that. So I'm very excited for this RMC. I want to hear what you guys think in the comments about this creation that I've built. It is honestly probably my favorite RMC creation that I have built, at least my favorite wooden RMC that I've built personally myself. And I love the design. I think it's great. And as we get to this part here, I noticed that kind of the wall was kind of awkwardly in the terrain, so I decided to try and cover that up the best I can with rocks to make it a little bit more natural and realistic looking. So that's how that turns out. And yeah, so there's going to be a lot of trees and foliage that are going to be around this as well. And as for the exit, because the exit's on this side and that we're working on right now, I want to make kind of this little observation dock that goes off the cliff right there. So when you're at the exit, you can actually get a very decent view of this coaster and how it looks. So anyways, this is going to be a very simple station as well. Not too much to it, and we have a lot of theming items to do as well. My goal is to make the track scenery rating very high, and to make sure that it has a lot of stuff like that. I might even throw some triggers in there. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe some triggered areas around the ride. Nothing too insane, but we're gonna see how that turns out first. And yeah, we're gonna get all the foliage in there and see how it works. And yeah, we're probably going to add a lot of music throughout the queue line and the area, and I want to make sure this themed area is probably the best area in the park, even though there's going to be a minimal amount of rides in this section of the park. The section that's going to have the most rides is definitely going to be the Invention Company. Now that's going to be the area that's going to have all the ride, or a lot of the rides, because it makes a lot more sense that the Invention Company would have most of the rides in this sense. So we'll see how it works, and I think it's a very exciting experience. And as we get the roof here, my camera like spazzed out completely, so hopefully it didn't make you too nauseous there. But I've been making my stations a lot like this lately, making this kind of like skeleton frame and then building the roof on top of it. I think it gives a really cool old style look to your stations. So it's a very great, I think it's a very great station kind of thing to do, because you get this, I've seen a lot of stations with a lot of like skeleton stuff like that, and then you have the roof on top. I think it works very well, and it actually makes it look like a very decent station. So I'm very proud with this station, and I think it turned out really well. So anyways, that's going to do it for this episode. Hope you had a great day and an even cooler tomorrow, and I will catch you guys next time. Thank you guys so much, and goodbye.